Okay, so what is your position on Islam then? Do you have any issues with it? Do you know about it? Have you researched? What do you know?
I've done
Do you
quite a
have
bit of
questions?
research.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't know. Is it all right if I Google throughout the conversation? Is that fine?
Yeah, for what reason? It depends on the reason. But
I
yeah, no
mean, because
problem.
I'm not the most knowledgeable on things, so I might need
That's
a
fine.
supplement to help me as I'm going
It
through.
depends on what you're doing. Yeah, but go ahead. Yes.
So at least my main gripes with Islam are kind of similar with Christianity. Like the two that I can think of at the moment. Well, I'll start
Mm-hmm.
with one so we can make it a bit more structured.
Mm-hmm.
Is the account of how long we've been on Earth for, or at least how old the Earth is, and as far as is how it is in both Christianity and Islam. At least with Christianity, 100% it isn't correct. They say we've been here for only what 6,000 years, and from what I've researched, the count is a bit similar in as far as what's recorded or mentioned in Islam, from what I've researched so far.
But Quran doesn't talk about how old the earth is.
Well, not so much what it mentions directly, but the calculation of the amount of time each prophet was around for, and the time in between each.
Prophet
If you
does
just
not
do an
mention that as
addition
well.
at all.
Well, okay, tell me exactly what you're referring to. Go ahead. I'm willing to listen. But before doing that, how do you think the Earth is? How old the Earth is? How do you think?
I don't have an exact number that I think is plausible, but I'd say over 50,000 years at least is plausible, just from
And
like
what's
like the.
and
Mhm.
why do you believe that?
Because of carbon dating and the rings of a tree. Those are my two criterion, I'd say so far.
Okay, so you're saying due to carbon dating, you're saying what 50 what how many?
6,000 years that is too short a time for us to have been on this earth.
We don't say 6,000 years. I don't know. Like it's more like okay. Go ahead. Tell me where does it in Islam mention that 6,000 years or less? I'm happy to listen. Go ahead.
Can you hear me clearly? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Where does Islam say the age of the earth is 6,000 years, or something similar to that, in which then makes you says, okay, that is incorrect according to reality. That contradicts reality. So go ahead and present. Where does Islam say that?
It doesn't say it directly. Just to be sincere, I'm not trying to be insincere. It doesn't say it directly. But if you just add up all the years that are accounted for each prophet, just till you get to this time, or at least
Where
till you
does
get
Islam
to
give
the
you a
prophet.
timeline? Where does the Quran give you the timeline of the age of the earth, or where does Islam give you that timeline?
I did do some research, and there's no specific time that it's given, and it's quite ambiguous. There's a period of time which is quite ambiguous that could span over billions of years if we include the time when we went on Earth. So I'm not too worried or fussy about that point because I did learn a bit and realize I was wrong on
Isn't
this.
that what I said to you? Didn't I tell you that there is no timeline, right? But you were saying 6,000 years and this and this. That was the point I'm making. The Quran doesn't. It is irrelevant information. Therefore, the Quran doesn't need to tell you whether it is billion years, 2 billion, 3 billion. How does that influence our life? How does that change our behavior and our connection with God? It has nothing to do with the purpose of life, and therefore Allah does not mention it. There's no need for Allah mentioning it to begin with.
I see, no, 100%. I think I took that misconception from Christianity and just like slapped it onto Islam without doing enough research, I'd say.
That's fine. Okay. You said other
At least
other question. You said you're not worried about that point, so we go to the next one. Yeah.
100%, 100%. So
Okay.
then my issue is to do with the Islamic view of like idolatry. I think you guys call it shirk, if I'm not mistaken. Please don't
Mhm.
like I might butcher the pronunciations here and there.
No,
But
you're okay.
if if at least when it comes to facing the Qibla whenever you pray, and it has to face the Kaaba, which is like a square object. It's not it's a specific square object that exists in this world. Wouldn't that also like count as shirk if, let's say, having a painting or a sculpture in your house counts as
What is
shirk?
the Kaaba? What is the Kaaba?
Um, I only understand it to be a historical.
Have you prayed in a church before?
I used to when I was Christian. I did.
So when you pray in the church, do you pray to the church,
Um,
or is the
you wouldn't
church
pray to.
considered to be the house of God or the house of where people come and pray? Which one is it?
eh, Well, at least people would
The
say directly
synagogue.
it's the house of God.
Yeah, the Quran calls the Kaaba the house of God. You know, Allah says, "Inna awala baytin wudi'a lin-nas alladhi bi Bakkata mubarakah." The first house to be placed for the house of God, the first house of God to be placed is the Kaaba. We view the Kaaba as a house of God. We don't. It's just like the masjid is a house of God, the mosque. The Kaaba is similar,
Hmm.
and that's why Muslims pray inside the Kaaba as well. Not
Hmm.
only that, the Muslims go on top of the Kaaba. So if they were holding the Kaaba as a holy idol, you're not going to step it on top of it with your feet and walk all over and go inside of it and pray. This is just a Christian kind of a very ridiculous Christian. Honestly, it's a very ridiculous one. It's a very ridiculous Christian argument. But this is a house of God for Muslims. Kaaba is a house of God. Muslims pray inside of the Kaaba, pray outside of the Kaaba, and Muslims go on top of the Kaaba to do the call of the prayer. Bilal, which was a slave at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he used to go on top of the Kaaba and he used to do the adhan. And you have the Muslims all uniting in one direction of prayer, which is that house of God, the first house of God. They all unite in one direction of prayer towards the first house of God. That's it. In fact, do you know the Kaaba was historically destroyed and rebuilt multiple times under Muslim rule?
100%. 100%. Under Muslim rule, I didn't know that.
Under Muslim rule. We're not talking about, we're talking about under Muslim rule multiple times. Until it came the time of Imam Malik, and then Imam Malik said that we don't want people to lose respect for the Kaaba as a house of God, so we keep building it and rebuilding it, building it and rebuilding it. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a narration that if the people were not attached to the Kaaba, he would destroy and then build it on the foundations of Ibrahim. Right? He said that, so he didn't do it because they were new Muslims. He said Hadithu Adim bi Islam. They're just newly accepting Islam, so they would not understand why the Prophet is doing it. So he said right now is not the time. So one caliphate later on did it. And then another caliphate said, okay, we're going to destroy it and we'll bring it back again to the same way it was at the time of the Prophet. So they destroyed it and brought it back multiple times. And look, anyone who views like the Kaaba as like some sort of this is not something that Muslims would do in any way, shape, or form. Just looking at history of Muslims, of how they view the Kaaba and what they call it, what the Quran calls it, etc. And the fact, as I said, that they literally rebuilt it multiple times themselves.
I see.
It's a house of God.
At least
it's a house of God that we believe Abraham either built or rebuilt. There is a disagreement between the scholars. Some scholars believe that it was first built with Adam. It was the first house to be built. With Adam built it. And then it was destroyed, and then Abraham built on the foundations, because the Quran says that he's raising the foundations. It doesn't say that he's building from the beginning. So what gives us that significance is the first house of God. The first house of God. The first house to be placed for the people for worship. That is the significance of the Kaaba for us as Muslims. And as I said, you can pray inside the Kaaba because it's considered as a house of God, just like the masjid is considered the house of God, or any other mosque, or the church is a house of God for the Christians, or the synagogue is a house of God for the Jews.
But at least
no one is going to say you're doing idol worship there, because who you're praying to is what matters. You're praying to God alone. You're not praying to anyone else. When you are doing Hajj around the Kaaba, you say labbaika Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak. You have no partner. You're literally saying that Allah has no partner when you're doing Hajj. This is the chanting that people do when they are around the Kaaba, that there's only one God worthy of worship.
If that's
Islam
the case,
Islam
sorry
and
to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
But
No,
like,
I was just going to say the last thing.
case-
I was just going to say the last thing is that the main foundation of Islam is Tawheed, which is pure monotheism. To try to insinuate that Muslims have any sort of idol worship is the exact opposite of what Muslims believe, literally. Yes, go ahead.
At least if that's the case, then what's the issue with having, for example, let's say a sculpture in your house that you're not praising, but it's just there as a sculpture that's in your house? Or for example, let's say it's the church or like a Catholic church, and they have a cross, or like a whole a sculpture that resembles what they see as Jesus on the cross. How is it different
because
from
they
that?
do believe that is like, for example, the Hindus that have these sculptures, they believe these are representations of actual forms of God. They don't just believe this is just a sculpture. And the cross is not just a piece of wood or a piece of metal, or it signifies, in their belief, God literally dying on the cross. So it is associating partners with God. We don't believe the Kaaba is that's the difference now. We don't believe the Kaaba is either an image of another God, or itself is God, or is signifying another idea or entity that we worship other than Allah. This is the problem with shirk. So it's a complete different analogy, like there.
And what about a sculpture? Just if you're not worshiping it, you just like
Yeah,
an
a
artist,
sculpture,
for example.
Yeah, a sculpture is prohibited in Islam, but not for that specific, for many reasons. Like, for example, a sculpture is prohibited in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, is that people are trying to create a creation like Allah. They're trying to imitate or make something like Allah. They're trying to compete with God in His creation in a way. There is a prohibition there. And also the idea that people later on started worshipping them. So in the beginning, these sculptures were there of righteous men at the time of Noah, where polytheism first started. And then after that, then people started like going to the graves of these people, because the sculptures were there. And then they started giving them gifts. And then the next generation started thinking, okay, these gifts were like, you know what, for good luck, for them to bring us closer to God. And gradually this happened. So destroying...
some misinterpretation, basically.
Yeah, no, so gradually they turn into polytheism. Yeah, over time turns into polytheism, this idea of making idols and sculptures and this and that of humans or individuals or entities. It's prohibited in Islam for these two reasons. It's creating a creation other than Allah, and also this idea of gradually turning people into polytheism. But it's, again, yeah, the Kaaba is a complete, like, different story. Okay, yeah, what else? But it surprises me that this ridiculous claim actually people like believe. Like, so anyways, it's good to address it anyways. So go ahead, yeah.
It's not so much that I have this claim, it's just trying to understand the wisdoms behind it, behind why this is okay, that's okay, and why it's demonizing one religion and not another.
That's fine. But you know, the Bible says that you shouldn't have idols and pictures and statues as well, but people still do that. If you read the Old Testament, it's explicit on that. You should not have any images or statues of God. It's not just Islam, right? This is a teaching. This is a monotheistic teaching, but the Christians don't follow it. Those who make pictures of Jesus, and they don't follow their own book.
I see.
The Jewish people will
that does clear it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I do agree that if it is a monotheistic religion, then there's nothing of this world that should be exalted and praised. So I do agree with that take. Just going to the beginning of the conversation, I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that if there is a higher power, we shouldn't be worshiping something that's off this earth per se, and giving that praise when we should be giving him praise directly, or not him, but like just that entity praise.
Yes, yes.
At least on my side, those were my major gripes and the things I didn't like understand fully. I remember I mentioned I was on the fence. I used to be agnostic, but at the moment I'm just trying to seek as much truth as I can and get to the conclusion of what I think, what I have conviction about is true, I'd say.
Okay, so about God, you said you're a deist, like, or you're sure about God's existence, essentially. About Islam, that's what I was asked you after that. I said, okay, about Islam, what is the contentions that you would have? You asked these questions now about the age of the earth and then the Kaaba, etc. And the last thing that you asked. So these are the questions that you have. So other than that, you don't have any contentions with Islam, is what you're saying?
At least I would, but after I did more research, at the same time I don't. And it might sound like a contradiction to say that, but let me try to explain it at least. Because at least from my perspective, even though I wasn't religious just before this call, at least, I was religious before. And I was after understanding that if there's anything that the text that you believe in says you must do, then you must do it. And at least with Islam, even though I still have the same opinion that if there's something in the text that you have to do, that's in the text, you have to do it. And it's just a matter of adjusting to all the changes in lifestyle if I do go on to adopt Islam from here. Just for example, like I was a drawer. I used to draw quite a lot, a lot of like stick figures and do a lot of art, and not stick figures, but like people. I used to draw people, realistic objects, so animals, and I'm sure there's an issue with that. And then at least I used to also be a musician. Well, I still am a musician to some degree, and I'm sure there's obviously an issue with that, which reminds me of one other question I do have. At least, is nasheed allowed if, let's say, you're saying positive things, but they're not direct quotes from the Quran? Is that okay?
Let me help you with the idea of music simply. I'll clarify and simplify it for you. What is prohibited is musical instruments. Musical instruments like piano, guitar, drums, all of these musical instruments. With one simple exception, something called the daf, which is only to be used by women in celebration, which is a very very small exception. But the general rule is that the musical instruments are prohibited. So anything that would contain musical instruments is prohibited in Islam. Now, the second idea now we would have, because music is different things. It's musical instruments. It is a singer and words. This is what music is. So we said musical instruments is prohibited. Now we have the singer. If the singer is a female and her voice can cause seduction to males and this and that, that's not permissible for men to be listening to. And if it is a man then, who is just singing, who's just singing words, and then now we're moving on to the third thing, which is the words. And these words are good words. Not like the first 100 hit music albums of today, all talking about gangs and body parts and this and that. No. If he's actually saying good 100%, words.
100%.
Yeah, if he's actually saying good words, things that are uplifting and this and that. Like in war, sometimes we have men singing to encourage other men and these type of things. This is permissible in Islam. There is nothing that would say this is haram, this is not permissible. So that would be permissible if he's saying good words. Poetry, saying something good, whatever it is permissible. Just like Imam Shafi'i, he said that the poetry is speech. The good of it is good and the bad of it is bad. So there is good and bad speech, right? You can say either good things or you can say bad things. So this is the breakdown of the idea of basically of music.
And at least with let's say it's art, and let's say it's for example photography. If you do alter the pictures in any way, would that count as making a creation against the creator? I forget what the specific term.
It will be considered something else, which is changing the creation of Allah. It will be changing the creation of Allah. So if that altering is severe altering, look, the kind of boundaries of the altering, or where you stop when it comes to the altering, is where you're changing something that does not exist in the creation. So you're changing into something that is not in the creation now. So you're changing into something else other than the creation of Allah. You're changing the creation of Allah. And we believe that's literally the job of Satan. That's what Satan does. And that's what Satan says in the Quran, that he will do. That I will command them, فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. They will change, then they will change the creation of Allah. I will command them, and then they will change the creation of Allah. That's what we see today, yeah? Boys and girls, who's a boy, 100%. Who's a girl. I don't know how many genders you want to talk about today, right? In the Western society, but this is
not to disrespect anyone, but I disagree with it as well, but I'm just not trying to be disrespectful, 100%.
But this is the thing. The people in the West have become so soft that to say that you don't agree with something have become a form of disrespect. That's not disrespect. If I say, okay, Allah created us, I'm a Muslim, I believe Allah created us as men and women. And there's only men and women that Allah created us with. That's as simple as that. That's what my belief. How is that? Why you believe otherwise? You can believe otherwise. That doesn't mean I'm disrespecting you. But this is objective reality. When we are born,
100%.
We're either male or female. Or a man
it's not
or a woman.
It's not so much the objection you presented. It's just the fact that I laughed at the example.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm not trying to mock them, is what.
But some things can be so strange that they can be funny. When someone says to you, "I'm a wolf," and then starts walking for and then walking in school, and then certain classes right now in the West is where you have children literally identifying as animals, and then the teachers cannot do anything because it's against the law. So then what they do is that they bark and they meow and they moo, and they moo, and that's what the class is literally, and the teacher cannot teach them anything, and it's not against the law because under the law you're supposed to be able to do these things. So some things can be ridiculous to the extent in which you would laugh, yes, because it's opposing the reality. So that's not necessarily wrong for you to do, I would say.
I see. No, I agree with that fully, 100%. I do. I agree with that fully.
You should. That's why you should be a Muslim, you see, because only Islam is standing firm on this ground, when it comes to these changes and this and that. If you see a religion opposing this and standing on their ground, this Islam, because it is a religion of truth coming from the Creator. If you are with these similar values, then you should be a Muslim, But as you said, the only thing stopping you now, or the only thing there, is the changes in your life that you will have to do, and because you're already doing different things that you see from an Islamic point of view, Islam prohibits.
100%. At least it's not so much. It's like it's stopping me, but I just understand that these are steps. So at least if I'm going to be starting, what are the steps I should take? Considering it's Ramadan, and I have no problem with fasting when it comes to that. Like just water and food, I don't mind that. But it's also the other spiritual things that come with it, and all the duties you have to partake in. Like for example, if it's going to the masjid. That might be a bit difficult for me, like in as far as finding a community within this short amount of time before it starts.
Whether you become a Muslim or no, I would recommend even people watching that are close to Islam, you can start fasting. Like you can try it. There's nothing to lose, right? It is beneficial whether you're a Muslim or you're not a Muslim. Even if you look at it from a purely physical or materialistic side, still a beneficial thing for you as a human being, And so it's not eating and drinking, but it's also no sexual intercourse. It's also your temper and not cursing, not saying bad words, not getting angry at your family members. It's a lot more. So fasting is like keeping the perfect, trying as much as possible to stay in the best pleasing to God state as you can in that period in which you're fasting. So that is the essence of fasting. So you can try, of course, and there's nothing to lose there. And anytime, you're ready, you want to become Muslim, you're welcome.
What do I have to do?
It's a very simple thing. It's a testimony of faith. But what matters is what you believe it or not. Is you testify is only one deity worthy of worship, Allah. And Allah is only uniquely one, independent. Does not have children, does not have fathers or grandfathers or grandmothers, Not 3 in 1, not 4 in 1, just uniquely one, right? Worthy of worship. And independent. And there's nothing like Allah. So Allah is completely unique in his existence. He's uniquely one. And to believe that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, that Allah sent, among other messengers like Jesus, Moses, Noah, Abraham, all of them are messengers of God that came with messages to their people. And the last and final messenger is the Quran, is that which come in to guide mankind and bring them to their Creator and give them absolute monotheism towards the Creator. If you believe these things, then you're ready to become Muslim, you know? If you testify, then it's called the Shahada.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But could I ask you a question though, just to see what your level of sincerity is? At least I have seen a few of the prophecies that Muhammad, peace be upon him, has like stated, or at least like from the research I saw. I didn't read the Quran directly, but I just saw like a Google list and even some of your videos that mention some of the things. At least, is there anything that you think is either like wrong or hasn't happened yet? That just to see if there's any doubts, because I did try to look if there's anything that got wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing that is wrong. It's impossible. If there is, like, how can I be a Muslim? You know? Because the Quran says that the Prophet Muhammad does not speak of his own. He speaks as revelation from God. So when he speaks about the future, or when he speaks about matters to do with God, because he says he doesn't know the future. So when he speaks about the future, he's speaking on behalf of God. So it's if there is one prophecy that about the future that is false, then he cannot be a messenger of God. So there is no such thing that exists. Now, about things that didn't happen yet, there are prophecies of the end times, the things that are apocalyptic, you know, that will be literally like worldwide events, like the coming of the Antichrist, Jesus coming back, these type of things, which are like we call the major signs of the end of the Day of Judgment. So these are yet to happen, because
100%.
when they start happening, they will fall like dominoes, and then the Day of Judgment will commence, the resurrection, and then accountability and everything. So there are these ones, some of these that didn't happen, of course, because we're not at that time yet. But other than that, anything else the Prophet ﷺ said, there's no such thing. That it's impossible for you to find something that didn't happen.
I see. I just found it spooky how correct a lot of them were, considering the amounts of like information he had at that time. It kind of pushed me to want to do more research and learn a bit more as I went along.
Let me ask this then. He said this is not from him, this is from God. Now, is it spooky, to use your own term, that God knows this information and he reveals this information? There's nothing spooky about that, because God knows the future, literally. Yeah. So I'm asking you now, give me an alternative possibility. If he wasn't truly a messenger of God, how would he possibly, logically or rationally, come about and bring this information?
Not to say I believe this take that I'm about to mention now, but you could argue it's vague enough for it to somehow be misinterpreted as true. Like if you could say, for example, with the Christians and the Old Testament and New Testament, if they twist the interpretation as far as they like, you can make it true. I'm not saying that's what I think.
I get what you're saying, but that's not the case with the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad. They're direct and clear. In fact, you have of these prophecies that are time bound, exactly with time frame and when exactly is going to happen, like the prophecy to do with the Roman and the Persians. And then you have the individual specific, what will happen to that specific individual, like Abu Lahab and the other person who was following the Prophet, Suraq ibn Malik. I'm just forgetting his name. And Suraq ibn Malik was a bounty hunter. The Prophet told him he will hold the bracelets of the Persian king. So these are individual specifics. And there's other, as I said, that are time specific. And otherwise, they are people specific, like the people building the building. What people, the Arabs, Bedouin Arabs, what they will be doing, building tall buildings. These are all specific prophecies. So they're not something that you would need to twist in any way, shape, or form. And that's why when we say them, we just mention them. And then people understand these prophecies. We don't need to interpret them and explain them like you would have Christians doing, 6, 7, 8, and look, the 7 actually is this, is the 6, is this year. I'm sure you heard this nonsense before, right? So,
100%.
Yeah, we don't need to do this nonsense here, what you mentioned, because the prophecies are clear of the Prophet ﷺ. But the question is, how could he know all of them? And they're tins. And they're clear, and they're specific.
For sure.
But you give me an alternative explanation, though.
I really can't.
That's it.
Besides the interpretation, I'm a bit stumped.
Yeah, then you'd accept that he's a prophet, a messenger of God. It's the only option that is there. And then it would make perfect sense for someone to become Muslim. Because if he is a messenger of God, then what he says is true. If he says that we have to accept this, or when we die, X, Y, and Z will happen to us, then we have to accept this. Or when we die, X, Y, and Z will happen to us. So we have to take his warnings seriously, basically. So as I said,
100%.
I can see you still want some time, so I'll give you that time, to like do any more research. You want to come back again with questions, you're always welcome, As long as you're sincere, because this is what I see. When someone's sincere, when someone's genuine, is respectful, you're always welcome to come back, you know? And yeah, whenever you're ready, you want to take that step, you know, because a lot of people saying you're ready, I don't know. So whenever you want to take, whenever you want to take that step, inshallah, you're welcome to come back and take that step, you know?
At least how often do you live stream?
At least once a week I try. I don't think like in the last, I don't know how many months, it's always once a week minimum. It's always in Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, UK time, you know? Okay, he disappeared in the right time. Okay, no problem. It was the end of the conversation. I know you cut off, but it's okay. You cut off in the right time anyway.
100%,
So, do you,
100%.
yeah, did you want to say anything?
No,
Go ahead, please.
I read the comments, 100%. I read the comments and everything, and I
Yes.
kind of feel a lot of conviction to finally go with it and just just do it.
MashaAllah,
So I wouldn't mind
MashaAllah.
taking the
Okay.
shahada to inspire people.
They're doing great work, you know? Okay, mashallah. Okay, so let's do it
100%.
inshallah. We'll do it in English first and then we'll do it in Arabic. So you see, guys, this is your work, not
Alright.
me, yeah? Okay. Okay, let's say I testify
I testify
there is nothing worthy of worship
there's nothing worthy of worship
except Allah,
except Allah,
and I testify
and I testify
that Prophet Muhammad
that Prophet Muhammad
is his messenger
is his messenger
and servant.
and servant.
MashaAllah. Okay, we'll say the same thing now, but in Arabic, yeah? Very slowly, right? Okay, we say
All right.
أشهد
Ashhadu
أن
an
لا
la
إله
ilaha
إلا
illa
الله
Allah
وأشهد
wa ashhadu
أن
anna
محمدا
Muhammadan
رسول
Rasul
الله.
Allah.
MashaAllah, that's it, brother. You know,
Is that-
See, so, it's simple, brother. But wallahi, these words weigh so much on the scale in the day of judgment. Right now, maybe they're light to say, but they weigh so much because these are literally the differentiation between someone entering paradise or not entering paradise. There's a differentiation between someone testifying, giving God his right, and someone who's not testifying, giving God his right. So these words that you've said is the key for you entering paradise. And anything that you may have done that is evil in your past, Allah Azza wa Jal forgives it. And anything, as long as you start to take things as much as you can, seriously, try to work as much as you can, slowly, right? Do not overwhelm yourself. You send me your details, inshallah, in email, like your location, your WhatsApp number, etc., and your name. And I will connect you with our convert team so they can mentor you. So you take things step by step in the beginning. You just on learning more about the Quran and Islam. And in the same time, praying, learning how to pray. Nothing else. You don't focus on too many things. Don't overwhelm yourself. Do not take too many people as sources of knowledge because that's what confuses people in the beginning, right? Just focus on one or two people like to learn from the important things that are to do with the religion. So that's why we're connecting you with people. So you didn't go overwhelmed at the beginning and then people start confusing you here and there. So right now, it's like, this is what matters. You took this testimony of faith. It's the difference between you and thousands of people. You know, thousands of people are watching. But how many people are actually there who took that step and moved forward and came closer to worship in their Creator, you know? So it's something that Allah chooses, you know? He chose you, He wanted to guide you, you know? Alhamdulillah, you're guided today, you know? So I'm very happy for you, brother, you know? May Allah Azza wa Jal
No, thank you so
keep
much.
you
Like,
No, I appreciate it, brother.
no, thank you so much.
I appreciate it, brother. So, okay, brother.
No, thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, salam alaikum. See you, bro. Inshallah.